Hey guys! So today you and I are going to talk about struggling with motivation. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, I get that you love programming, but have you ever personally struggled with a lack of motivation when it came to completing your own work? Oh yes, constantly. I would even go as far as to say that it happens. Well, it goes in segments. It depends a little bit on what I'm doing at a given moment, but it can be as frequent as on a daily basis or on a monthly basis, depending, as I said, on where we are. So the thing that makes it a little bit tricky sometimes to figure out like when it's hard to basically say when it's going to happen, because it really comes down to, as you probably have heard me say before, guys. So when you pick a job or whatever you're doing in any given company, and this is why I tell people, just because you work at Google doesn't mean that you're going to have a good time or that you're actually going to be any better off than if you were to work at some startup somewhere or something like that, or consultancy or similar things, right? Because it all comes down to execution, the practicalities. What are you doing? And so for me, if I'm on the wrong project, I can literally like hate every single moment of it, because what I'm doing is so unfulfilling, so unstimulating, that I struggle to just have the energy to do the thing. And in some projects, well, that's a daily thing. That's because the way the project works, or it might be a temporary thing because, as you probably know, most of us in software development, it's not like you have it's not like working in a restaurant or something like that where it's more or less the same gig or the same basic structures every single day. It varies depending on the deliverables. I mean, you're always writing code, of course, but the projects change, the feature requests they change, and things like that. So you always have it's more product based. That's basically what I'm trying to say. And so for me, the stuff that at least I've found that I struggle with when it comes to motivation is loosely defined enough. Anything that I don't think is fun. So my mother, she's always said to me that, Frederick, you're not lazy. You just like things to be very comfortable. And translated into the thing that I'm talking about, basically, and this I can only agree with her that this is true. I've found that if I don't really enjoy a thing, there is no power on this earth short of, I'm assuming now, like being forced at gunpoint, that, well, I will do it. Like it literally is that bad. Like if I don't find it enjoyable, then it's not gonna happen. And for me, that's a little bit lucky, because when it comes to software development, most of the things are enjoyable to me. The things I don't find so enjoyable are the things that I struggle with every single time. So an example would be, I don't really enjoy working on a nothing project or like a toy thing. That's one of the reasons why I, for example, try to make a little bit more experimental projects and so forth when I try to learn and things like that. If you look at my GitHub, there is a reason why 90% of the stuff that you see there is unfinished. Because I work, and then I feel like I understand or that I've gotten the thing I want from this. I've learned the thing that I want from this. There's no, like, I don't feel a motivation to continue just for the sake of completing the task, because I have basically gotten to a point where I feel, I made an analogy a while back which is similar to this. Imagine that you're climbing a mountain, and when you're at the summit, there is like a really really high peak up there somewhere. So you start climbing, and the further up you get, the more and more investment you have to make into the thing, and then you get to just like it's just a short distance to this to the peak of the thing, right? But at that point, I am the sort of person who goes, okay, I know that I can continue now and get to the peak, but why would I? I've already proven to myself that I can climb this thing. I've already proven that I can do 90% of the work. There's just a little bit left to go. Why do I care? And then I go down again because now it's no fun anymore because I've already proven to myself that I can do this thing. And this happens constantly. So I've reached a point now in my career where I'm not gonna say that it's draining anymore, but it became more and more things became draining. So for me, for example, the worst thing in the world is, you know, having to go through somebody's project, especially when it's like an integration or something like that, where I just literally have to figure out what a certain configuration has to be. Like if I need to debug, classic one is CI pipelines. If you have a bug in your CI pipeline or something similar to that, like literally all you have to do is to sit down, read through all the, depending on what you're using now, if there is like actions or custom hooks or things like that, you just have to go through tons and tons of documentation in order to figure out, okay, what values do I need? I have to learn A, B, and C, all these different libraries, and I have to like just do a bunch of reading in order to just figure out what do I need to do this thing. It's not like a coding problem or anything like that. It's just really product comprehension or product knowledge, if you want. And that is something that I find to be extremely tedious, extremely boring. It just, yeah, it's very tiresome. Same thing with monotonous things. That's the thing that I think made me want to become a programmer in the first place. I think I've said so before. The time when I came to know myself and sort of the things that I need in order to be able to do anything, the thing that I was talking about, I have to find something to be stimulating. Otherwise, I hate every single moment of it. I'm not one of those people who can sort of mentally just plug out and do a thing over and over and over and not care about it because I have to have almost constant stimulation, mental stimulation. I've figured that out and I've always said so. I'm wondering sometimes if my dad actually meant that to happen. I don't think so, but if he did, he's smarter than I've ever given him credit for. And that was when I worked for him, I took a summer job in a factory where he works, and the job was literally take a strip of like a label and put it on a piece of pipe for 8 hours every day of summer, and I was 12, something like that. I hated every single second of that job. I did, like, if we were talking about like hours and hours and hours of just pulling a piece of, like, literally a strip, like a label, putting it on the pipe, move the pipe, and do that. It's as robotic as you can imagine. And so when I figured out that I cannot do this, I want to kill myself basically, that's how boring it is. Then I started finding, like, my measurement for when I'm on board is how many times do I look at the watch, I look at the clock, and wonder sort of when is the workday over. If I do it more than 3 or 4 times in a day, then this is clearly not something that I enjoy doing. So what I want you to take away from this is that yes, I love programming, but not everything about programming is fun, guys. Like for me, it's gotten to the point now where, I mean, it's not even fun these days to set up a standard project. Like if we're talking about the sort of stuff that most of us are doing, if it's building a REST API or if it's building a UI or something like that, like most of this stuff I've done so many times now that it's not really something that gives me stimulation. Something that I do find enjoyable, which I'm very fortunate enough to be able to do these days, is to solve what I call hard problems. And as you can imagine, when I first started, a hard problem was understanding how to do a console log, and then understanding how to loop things, understanding how it starts out with what probably many would feel like now, or depending on where you are, of course. I mean, as you get better at the thing you're doing, the more resistance you're looking for. It's almost, as I've said before, like fitness. And for me, it works the same way. If I have two easy weights, it's no fun. And it has to get harder and harder. And now I'm at a point where what I find to be stimulating is very narrow in comparison to the stuff that is the reality for a lot of software developers. So the things, like, at least now, I can say that I still find it enjoyable to just write code and understand requirements and sit and just do programming, because it's almost relaxing at this point. But I wouldn't go as far as to say that I still find it super 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 stimulating, because it's simply not difficult enough. The things that really gets me, as I said, is when there is no mental there's no figuring stuff out. Basically, it's really just read documentation or take specification A, map a bunch of values like doing SQL joins or whatever. Like you're literally just uh, taking something that is in one format, converting it to something else. There's no problem solving whatsoever, or very little at the very least. These are things that I struggle with all the time. And as I said, you can go and look at like my old projects and so forth if you want to, and you'll see that most of them are it's just garbage, or like it's just something that I played around with, got bored of because I either didn't find it more interesting to continue with the thing because don't get that sensation of stimulation from it anymore, or it's stuff that I basically, as I said, I made a proof of concept of the thing, and sure you can take it further and make it more advanced and so forth. But as I said, with my little mountain climbing, you get to a point where you can see how far there is to go, and you just don't have the interest to continue all the way to the top because most of the fun part has already been covered. Have a great day.